are y'all doing today? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dye the colorway Ranunculus, which it's one of my favorites. It's kind of a pinky peachy kind of color. It's very kind of spring-like, which is what I'm feeling like doing today. So I'm going to dye 2 skeins of each of the 4 bases that I ordinarily dye on, which is my Everyday Sock, my DK Everyday, my Sparkly Sock, and also my Sparkly DK. So I'm going to do 2 each of those. And what I've done is I've started, as you can see over on this on the side of the screen, on the other side of the screen from that camera, is I've done the first and second steps on some of them, so that I'm hoping that it's going to kind of take away that, okay, I put this layer of dye on and then I've got to wait 10 or 15 minutes before I can put the next one on, kind of a thing, which is, it's just kind of a, you know, I don't want to waste y'all's time like that. I am cognizant that not all of us have all of the time in the world, so. Anyway, so we're going to try that and see how that works. And then also another benefit of this is by the time we get to the end, I already have one dyed that I can show you, so you can see how it all works out. So it's kind of like a dying time lapse about the time lapse. So I appreciate all of you being here right today and this morning, and I also definitely appreciate those of you who are watching this later, which probably is easier for most of us. So anyway, welcome all. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put one more layer on one of these front ones real quick. And then I'm going to do the first layer on the one in the back. Okay, this is the Sparkly DK, which, if truth be told, is probably one of my favorite vases. I mean, not just because it's sparkly, but I mean, how can you not like that? But once it dyes up and it dries, it's very, very squishy and fluffy, and I just love the sparkliness of it also. Okay. As you can see, I pull the skeins out in between layers and kind of readjust them a little bit and kind of plump them back in. I know that there are dyers out there that kind of line theirs up in a pan, and I mean, that's great for them. That's what works with their dyeing style and what they're trying to achieve. For me personally, I like things to be a little bit more I don't want to say uniform, because that's not right, because obviously it's variegated with lots of different colors. But what I'm hoping to achieve is when you are using your yarn and knitting with it or crocheting with it or weaving with it or whatever it is that you're doing, that you're not going to have a massively different area of color in one part of your project and another massively different color in the rest of your project. I kind of like for it to be, you know, kind of looking at it and being able to say that that's all one thing, and you've got little bits of pink and little bits of this and little bits of that, but kind of all scattered around. So the best way that I have found to do that is by kind of, when I put the yarn in here and kind of pile it up, it kind of makes things a little bit more random, and you have different parts of the yarn showing. And anyway, that just seems to be working out pretty well for me. But this layer that I just put on here is kind of a melony orange, a little bit more than coral, more orange than coral, I would say. And this base back here is my Everyday Sock, and I'm going to put the first layer on that, which is kind of a light peachy color. You'll notice on most of my colorways, I kind of layer the colors on from lighter to darker. So this first color that I'm putting on, this peach color, is, which you can see over here, which is already done in this one here, is a kind of a light pastel-y type of color. So it's kind of putting a lighter base kind of on the whole thing, and then you know, the next color is a little bit darker, and then a little bit darker, and then usually the third or fourth color, I happen to have 4 on this one, is the darkest yet. You'll see that there's just a little bit of dye in here, but I'm going to go ahead and dilute it with some water because I want it to be able to cover, you know, pretty much this whole top area. And if I just use that tiny little bit, it would just give little dribbles, and it wouldn't really give the look that I'm going for. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and let that set for a little bit. Okay, so this pen right here is the DK Everyday. I'm going to go ahead and rearrange the skeins. I use a reusable nylon zip tie just to help me get it in and out of the water a little bit easier. But when I'm putting the yarn back, I move the zip tie, I'd say about 1/4 of the way down the skein, just so that when I'm putting things in, I'm putting them in a different orientation, and different parts of the yarn are showing on the top. Like you can see there's a lot more white here than there was, because there was a lot of the whiter and lighter colors that were underneath. So I'm going to want those to be on the top so that that next color will help take care of those. Okay, this color that I'm doing is kind of a, okay, here's the pinky color. Just love the way these pinks and peaches kind of play together. So when I pour the dye on top of this, you'll notice that there's more kind of concentrated areas in the top, which is what I want. But that kind of darker color underneath the water is kind of hitting the water and dispersing and becoming more dilute, I guess, more spread out, a less concentrated color. And so underneath here, which we can't see, you're also going to get this same pink color, but it's going to be much more diluted, and it's also going to mix with the peaches that are already under there, and that's how you get such a cool variegated color. Okay, this right here is my sparkle sock. This has this layer and this layer on it already, so I'm going to rearrange this. And you can see these darker areas under here, which were on the top when we dyed that last layer. So I'm going to kind of put that underneath and have some of the lighter up top and some of the lighter peach. And so then this next darker color is going to get on top of that. On this one is the same layer that I just put on this one, which I didn't get to before I started going live. So that's why I'm doing this twice. As you can see, this is just a tiny little bit of this color. It's very, very concentrated. So I'm just going to dilute this about halfway with some water. just to ease the pour a little bit. Because I'm not wanting as much of this color to kind of dilute and spread out everywhere. This and also the last color that I'm going to do, because like I said, they're very concentrated colors, and I don't want it overwhelming all of the lighter colors that are there. I want them to kind of mix and play a little bit, but not get completely covered by the darker colors, if that makes sense. Okay. Now I'm going to head back to the sparkly DK, which we just put on right as we went live. You can see the pinks and the purples and the peaches kind of all scattered and throughout. You all can probably hear my dog snoring in the background. If any of you know anything about little kitties, they love to sleep, and they sure make a lot of noises while they're doing it. I wish I could show you the picture of her. She's actually really funny looking right now. She's passed out asleep in a very weird position. Okay, so this final color that I'm doing is also a pinky color, but it's a darker and more concentrated, kind of a different tone than the lighter pink that we did before. I'm not sure if you can see the scale today, but I measure how much dye that I'm using on each one, so that, I mean, obviously there's going to be differences in the dye lots, but I'd like to at least have the same amount of dye going in each one, so that we can, so that you can use them together. Or if you loved it when you knitted it up in the sparkly sock and you'd like a DK one because you want to make a hat out of it, then, at least you're going to know what the color is going to look like. So this is just a tiny, tiny little bit. So I'm going to dilute that also with a little bit of water. So that is a very vibrant, concentrated, more of a purpley pink than the last one, the last pink that we did. So this pan right here is the last pan. Everything has been applied, and I'm going to let that simmer there for about half an hour or so, maybe 45 minutes, depending. Just because that dark pink is so vibrant, I want to make sure that it binds within the yarn, so that when I rinse it and when you rinse it, when you block your stuff, that the dye is not coming out in the water. It ends up turning out. You can see the little peachiness undertones here on these lighter colors. And then you see the darker kind of melon orange that we put on. There's also these lighter pinks here from that second color that we did. And then you can also see these darker, more concentrated areas, which, come on, Mike, give me a break. Which we just did on this last layer. So this is actually the everyday sock. I already have two of these dyed up. And I also have socks made out of this, so you can see how it knits up. Okay. This will probably give you a little bit of a better idea as to what I'm talking about as far as the different colors being kind of dispersed through here. Like if you look at this area right here up at the top of the sock, and then this area down here at the bottom of the sock, they're very similar. There's still the darker pink and the lighter pink and the peach and the darker melon and all of those colors kind of all everywhere, but there's not like a whole like stripy area. The dark pink up here and then no dark pink down here, if that makes sense. So, and also if you look, the second sock is, you can't really tell the difference between that and the first one. And I used Acorn. This is the sparkly sock Acorn, which is in the autumnal mini skein set. And that's what I used for this toe. And I also like to put a little, alrighty, I will see you later.